Hello everyone and welcome along to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. As always, Sam Turner alongside me to look back on what we've just seen in the sport of horse racing, look forward to what promises to be a fabulous week. But news just through that dear old Stradivarius has been retired. What a wonderful stay he's been. He's been around for 7 seasons. He's won numerous Gold Cups, Goodwood Cups, Doncaster Cups, Lonsdale Cups. £3.5 million in prize money, but now he's off to spend some time with the
ladies,
equine ladies.
Good luck to him.
Yeah.
What a career! £3.5 million career earnings, 20 races, 20 wins from 35 races, 6 from 6 at York, better strike rate than you on Ebor Day. 4 from 5 at Goodwood, and 6 from 12 at Ascot. 3 Gold Cups, 3 Yorkshire Cups, 3 Lonsdale Cups, 4 Goodwood Cups, and of course. The Handicap has rated his defeat by Kyprios as probably one of the best performances of his career. So to go out on a high like that was terrific, and what a great horse he's been. Great character, brilliant to follow his journey. It's been associated with all sorts of bits and pieces of controversy in later years, but brilliantly handled by the Gosden team and predominantly brilliantly handled by Frankie Dettori as well, although Andrea chipped in a fair bit too.
Indeed. All that, absolutely can't disagree with everything, the synopsis there. But where would you place him in the list of great stayers that you've seen? And obviously, Yates,
that's a good question.
Well,
I think we've got a pretty good one at the moment, haven't we, with Kyprios? We might see him again the weekend.
Yeah.
Yates is right up there, but for longevity, Stradivarius, I think. And just for character as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a real lovable rogue, wasn't he, on occasions? You know, he'd only just do enough, pull himself up a little bit at York, but don't just drop his head down on the jam stick just in front of the crowd, and just loved the game, didn't he?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have come back all those years if he didn't. And the fact that they wanted to retire him at the end of last season and ended up running him, you know, in his 8th year was astonishing, really.
Yeah. Well, we wish connections of Stradivarius. Thanks, of course, to having him for that long, but also all the best of luck in his new career as a stallion. I believe he goes to the National Stud, so good news for breeders if they're looking for a bit of stamina in the pedigree. Stradivarius announced as having retired. So that's a brief look back at one of the great careers, but now we're going to look back at the racing scene in the UK over the last week. First of all, Group 1 action to reflect on from Newmarket, the fillies and colts, 2-year-olds in action. And the Middle Park Stakes, Blackbeard for Aidan O'Brien was pretty impressive. I quite like the second as well at the Antarctic. But what was your immediate reaction to the quality of the Middle Park that we saw this year, Sam?
I thought it was pretty good. It was a disappointment for me that Marshman pulled his chance away and he wasn't competitive. That detracted a little bit from the race, but the time figure was pretty solid. It was his 8th start. I mean, what a durable horse he's been. The Antarctic's not been lazy either. I think he's had as many. You know, he beat Persian Force half a length in the pre-morning. He beat him 3 and a bit on Saturday. Strong finish at the line, although if you compare the two closing sectionals, the 3 furlong sectional and the last sectional with Lazoo, you can see that sort of Blackbeard, that was as far as he wants to go. He was probably one of the slowest closing sectionals on the day, really. So I think he's, you know, definitely a sprinter. No, nay, never. 6 furlongs.
I was going to ask about that because it was striking. I felt that Aidan O'Brien didn't do what sometimes he occasionally does. Pre-race, post-race interview when he is questioned about where a horse might go, and he often says could do anything. Could go a mile, could go back, stick to sprinting or whatever. But he was pretty clear that this horse, Blackbeard, is a speed horse, 5-6 max.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think the figures sort of suggest that, really. I think he was 7 lengths slower than Lazoo from the 3 furlong pole and 5 lengths slower from the final furlong as well. So they'd obviously gone very hard early on. You'd expect the pace to collapse a little bit, but he was a strong stayer at 6. He picked up well out of the dip as well. Just such a hardy, durable horse and not lacking quality either. I mean, he's been to France as well, you know, obviously Ireland, Britain. Just a bomb-proof horse, although, you know, he's a bit of a pirate down at the start, isn't he? Yeah. But during a race, you know, I think that was even more evident on Saturday. Those Ballydoyle horses, they settle in the races, don't they? You know, you look at Trillium, you look at Marshman and 1 or 2 others that were keen and reefing and just wouldn't get into any racing rhythm. But he's just, all right, he plays up going into the stalls, he knows where he is, but once he's in a race, he's deadly.
And it was a weekend for horses, the youngsters, that had shown quite a lot of toughness through their career. Because obviously Blackbeard, as you mentioned, he's had a busy time of it, and he beat the Antarctic, who's also had a busy time of it. That was in the Middle Park. In the Cheveley Park, Lazoo won for Rafe Beckett, and she'd had a busy season. She had a bit of a break, admittedly, but she had quite a busy summer season. And to come back, Rafe Beckett mentioned that he knew something had changed in her because the colour of her skin had changed. She got darker. But another one that he believes a mile is way too far sprinting. Yeah,
I mean, her data from Saturday was incredible. The overall speed figure was awesome as well. Very, very good sprinting filly. Might well be off to the Breeders' Cup now. She'll come back in trip, I think, to the 5.5 there, possibly, rather than stretching out, and that makes sense to make use of her speed. But as I say, she was a second and a half quicker than Blackbeard from the 3 pole, and that was, irrespective of the fact that the times were very similar, the overall times were very similar. So they really did pick up pace in the Cheveley Park and finish off well, and you could see that from the way she quickened.
The Royal Lodge was a race that I think a lot of people were hoping might provide a live Derby candidate. It might still in the future, but it turned into a messy race. The Foxes won. Very expensive horse who's taken a bit of time to get his act together, but it's certainly got it going now. The disappointment of the race was Flying Honours, but I wasn't that disappointed considering the way the race unfolded.
Yeah, I would put a line through the race as a form perspective, because I think if they ran that race 10 times and there was more genuine pace, you'd probably get 2 or 3 different winners. That's not to detract from the winner, who did well to win and probably wasn't positioned the best at one point of the race. So he has done well to win. Obviously, his closing sectionals were very quick. The overall time was absolutely pedestrian. So I wouldn't write off the Godolphin horse just yet. He looked a rare prospect on a couple of occasions this year, and I think he can bounce back.
I think the Foxes is living up to his name now, because obviously with the King Power Association, to name a horse the Foxes must have been a big decision. And he cost a lot of money. He's a very good looking horse, and he's a half brother to Matterhorn and Bangkok. Bangkok obviously racing the same colours. The impression after the race was that he's finally delivering what they believed he always was capable of. And the Derby being talked of after the race?
Yeah, he looks a slow maturing type, like his brethren almost, or his relatives. Probably a horse that's going to be better over 1.25 miles to start with next season, and then build up into 1.5 miles. But he's certainly worthy of taking in trials and looking to win races of that nature. The one thing you do know about him, he has got some inherent speed.
Yeah.
He'd have to have won on Saturday. So he did quicken very well, but yeah, the early pace was just absolute pedestrian and probably contributed to getting the Godolphin horse beat.
Yeah. Sticking with the 2-year-olds, Commissioning won the Rockfel Stakes. She's 2 from 2. She's very impressive first time up. And again, she was impressive in winning the Rockfel at the weekend on Friday. The thing I liked about her was she got to the front, looked like she didn't know what was expected of her. Then something came along and she went again.
Yes.
I enjoyed that. I think she's very, very good.
Well, she's already proven she's handled the dip really well. She's quickened out of that, lengthened out of it. The closing data wasn't astonishing, but I think it was a very evenly run race. I think they went fair enough, pretty quick early on. Olivia Meralda probably did a little bit too much in front. One or 2 others did as well. Trillium didn't settle. So the race fell apart a little bit, but you couldn't crib the winner. I mean, she was tremendously impressive. To do that on a second start, it's a tried and trusted path really to take on those very sexy maiden winners when they step up into group company. But she belied a little bit of weakness in the market, and I was really, really impressed with her. It was interesting to hear Rob Havlin's comments afterwards, and that she's a fairly straightforward filly. She can mess around a little bit down at the start of gallops and things, but once she's in full flow, she's very concentrated, got a good temperament, a good mind, and yeah, she looks an extremely talented filly.
6-4 with Bet365 for the Fillies Mile, which is in a couple of weeks' time. Whether she'd go for that, I'm not sure. But she's also got an invitation to the Breeders' Cup. 8-1 second favourite with Bet365 for the 1,000 guineas. I got the impression, there was certainly chat about the Breeders' Cup after the race. I got the impression that might well be on the agenda.
Yeah, they're not averse to doing it, are they? I mean, it's a bit of a strange one sometimes. John Gosden sort of comes across as somebody who regrets running horses in some respects, Inspiral being one, and there was 1 or 2 others during the July meeting that I think, looking back, he was annoyed at himself for running them after hard races at Royal Ascot. And yet with a filly like this, who's been a bit of a, I was going to say a Johnny come lately, obviously a Jessie come lately filly, and they're cramming quite a lot of education into a short period of time, aren't they? But they obviously feel that she's got the mind and the temperament to be able to travel to America and go and win out there. But I think the racing will suit her out there, the style of the racing and the way that she travels and switches off.
Absolutely. She does switch off, which is one of the key elements for any horse in showing their best. A couple of 2-year-olds to mention as well. Crypto Force put an end to Aidan O'Brien's total dominance of the Beresford Stakes. Aidan O'Brien was trying to win that race for the 22nd time in his career. Was
it 2010, the last time he didn't win it?
I thought it was 2009 and See the Stars it might have been.
Quite possibly. That was a tidy performance.
Crypto Force, I was going to ask about him as I think he might have been underplayed, the performance, because of course he won first time up, sold for big money, beaten, was it an Ascot, and then he's had a long layoff, but I thought he was really good on.
He was, I think there was a couple of non-runners, wasn't there? Aidan's other horse didn't run continuous, which was a shame because he'd have had a bit more strength to the race. So, it's probably one to watch, that race. And the other? One other?
Am I allowed to mention Nostrum? Is that all right?
You can mention Nostrum if you like. As long as I can mention Conservationist, who I thought was really impressive at Hayden.
Absolutely. One of those is going to win the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket.
Well, hopefully it'll be yours. He was tremendous, wasn't he?
He was very good, wasn't he? He's 2 from 2 now for Sir Michael Stout. Won on Thursday, last Thursday at Newmarket. Beat Holloway Boy and he beat Victory Dance, and he beat them convincingly. Possibly Victory Dance wasn't quite at his best, but he's now, I think, around 8-1 with Bet365 for the Guineas next year. And I think it's Little Big Bear and Auguste Roda who are ahead of him in the market. I wouldn't be afraid of either one of those two over a mile.
He's got good experience at Newmarket now. He's in great hands. He's stepping forward with each run. Still think he was learning on the job a little bit on Thursday. I thought he lit up a reasonable but modest card on Thursday, didn't he? I thought he had that extra bit of star quality myself.
And by all accounts, the paddock watchers who were at Sandown, who were also at Newmarket, said that he got bigger and stronger since that first run. Martin Dixon was at both meetings. And, he made the point to me when I saw him on the weekend. So all encouraging signs for Nostrum. Let's talk about some of the older horses. And the Bet365 Cambridgeshire on Saturday. The story of the race, I thought, was obviously Aidan Keeley. That was a magical moment for him, his first ride at Newmarket, and a bold call in getting the ride himself as well. Yeah,
Rob Hornby rode it, the horse, the week before, over a mile and a quarter at Newbury, and I backed it. Just didn't quite see out the trip, I didn't think, that day, but it was quite a warm race, but he didn't have to see the trip out at Newmarket, didn't he? Real strong finisher.
You tipped Dual Identity.
Yeah, I was sweet on Dual Identity. I thought he ran really well. Yeah, he was just left alone for too long over on that far side. He hadn't got anything to race with, unfortunately. I thought he'd run well. Protagonist took them along for as long as they could over on that far rail, and then faded and left him in front. Really, really consistent horse, Dual Identity. Wouldn't be surprised to see him shipping up down under before too long. But great effort from Majestic. Another big handicap win at around a mile for Mick Shannon.
Yeah, Mick Shannon wins his first Cambridgeshire at the age of 73.
He's already won a Lincoln this year.
Indeed. Absolutely fabulous season for him with those handicap wins. Aidan Keeley mentioned grandson of Brian Rouse.
Yes, I didn't know that until Saturday.
No, nor did I until after the race. Obviously, Brian Rouse, very good jockey back in the 70s, primarily.
A bit before my time, Rich, but you remember.
Well, he actually rode in Trinidad when I was growing up. He would come over for the Christmas spell, along with the likes of Tyrone Williams, Tony Kimberley, guys like that. Declan Gillespie, they used to come out and ride out in Trinidad. And Brian Rouse, it was great fun watching. So it's a poignant moment watching his grandson win the Cambridgeshire on the weekend. A couple of mentions, one for Muta Sabek in the Giles Stake. I mentioned him obviously in winning the race, but I thought Tempest further enhanced his excellent season with. A couple of things didn't go right for him, but he clearly is capable of another big win.
I thought it was a clever ride really from Jim Crowley on the winner. Obviously the blinkers on, an uncomplicated ride. His closing data was very good as well, so he's obviously stacked them up early on and then really kicked from the 3-pole, got them at it. That didn't suit Tempest, obviously. He was poorly positioned through the race, so yes, I agree. Emerges with a great deal of credit, and connections of Tempest have done extremely well with him, but that's Muta Sabek's third win, I think, at Newmarket from 4 starts. Laid the ghost of the mile, and the blinkers and change of tactics have obviously worked the oracle.
I agree, and he should never go back to Goodwood or Epsom or any track like that ever again.
No.
Stick to as many races as you can at
I
Newmarket.
think he's in a race over 7 at Newmarket coming up, but whether it comes too soon or not, I don't
Challenge,
know.
Is it?
Yeah, a week on Saturday, I think.
Okay. Last word from the week back. Worth giving a mention to Wayne Lorden and Waterville in the Irish Cesarewitch, and if you haven't seen the race yet, probably worth just having another look at it. You won't see Waterville getting up till very late, and if you watch them turning for home, he's still nearly, he's certainly in the back 4 or 5 turning for home in a massive field.
To use a tennis analogy, he could have been 2 sets to love down, 5-1 down, and 15-40 on his own serve. Really, couldn't he? Turning for home, he was just in an impossible position. And how he's managed to extricate himself and find a challenge through on Waterville was extraordinary, and he wasn't going away as well.
Yes.
Just shows you the courage, doesn't it? Sometimes if you're on a good enough horse and you can just pick your way through the pack, then you've got a chance. But yeah, that was an extraordinary ride.
Yeah, one of the performances of last week. Wayne Lorden, Waterville in the Irish Cesarewitch. So that's a look back. It's time now here on Racing Weekly to look ahead. So it's a real pleasure to welcome Rob Hornby, the rider of Westover, in this Sunday's Arc to Racing Weekly. Rob, first of all, when did you find out the news and how do you feel about being back aboard Westover and a horse who's also got a live shot at the Arc?
Yeah, hi Rishi, thanks for having me. So I was informed on Saturday evening on the way back from Newmarket, actually, after riding Juliet Sierra in the Cheveley Park. So yeah, I was told just a text message from Rafe saying that I'm riding Westover in Paris. So obviously very excited, and he's been a horse that I've still been riding in between all his runs throughout the year, and been galloping him in his last kind of 4 pieces of work from the break he had from after Ascot, and he's in great form, great order, and he's just boiling up now, and we've got him exactly where we want him, I think.
So in terms of his well-being, and if you could compare it to any other point during the season, is he in the same sort of form as before the Derby, the Irish Derby, or is he in better form? Is he strengthened up? How would you compare his physical readiness?
Yeah, he's done well throughout the year, really. I think the break came at a good time for him. Weight-wise, he keeps on putting on weight, which is good. He's strengthening up, and he's obviously a very big horse, and he's got a lot of size and scope, and it's just good to see he's still developing as a 3-year-old colt and strengthening up all the time. But in terms of where he's at the moment, he couldn't be happier, really. He's in real good shape, and particularly the last piece of work he did last week was very pleasing and encouraging. And he's one of those, there's only kind of so much you can really do at home, obviously keeping him very well and fit, but he's such a big horse that there is only so much you can do. But in terms of where he's been at coming into all the rest of his runs this year, he's definitely where we want him.
Rob, obviously Ascot didn't go that well for him. There's going to be a big field at Longchamp on Sunday. That's what we anticipate anyway. Do you think that track will suit him better than Ascot?
I think particularly the dimensions of the track. I mean, Ascot, the 1.5 miles at Ascot is quite a tough ask, especially in a small field that there was that day. Running downhill for the first 2.5 furlongs, I probably didn't suit the horse. He is quite he can be quite free going if he hasn't got a bit of protection and a bit of cover. So in terms of Longchamp, I think it will be a better track for him. Obviously, it's going to be a big occasion, and he did get a little bit worked up before Ascot, but he'd had quite a busy campaign, really, considering he was very lightly raced at 2, and then coming out and winning his trial first start of the year, and campaign for the Derby and then for the Irish Derby. He might have just needed to have a bit of a sit back and let him just take it all in, and he's done very well from the break, and he's going there in great form.
What about yourself, Rob? Because obviously way the season's panned out, and I heard you said, I think it was a bit of a crazy season, a bit of a roller coaster, but you won those 2 Group 1s, you're back on board Westover. It is the biggest race in Europe. No matter what people say, the buzz about the Arc is something incredible. What is it like for you to be aboard Westover going into the race with such a live chance?
Yeah, I mean, just a real honour and privilege, really. I just feel I'm very lucky and in a great position. And, I've been brought up watching Arcs over the years, and, a particular memory would be Workforce. And to be able to think that I'm going to be going out over to Paris and riding around Longchamp in those colours is a real honour and a dream come true, really, for a young jockey to have opportunities like this, and especially how the year went. Even just to have my first ride in the Derby was a very special moment, and a big opportunity in my career, and to be able to have another opportunity to get back on a horse that I adore, and that the whole team at Reefs do is just a real honour.
Of course, this isn't your first trip to Longchamp, is it? It's your first trip for Art Weekend, but you have been there before. You're 1 from 1 at the track. Just tell us a bit about that experience.
Yes, it's nice to have a good record there. Obviously, I haven't ridden around there masses, but it's nice to be going in there with 100% strike rate. And Scope was a fantastic horse for me last year. Unfortunately, he's not here anymore, and he suffered an injury. But I mean, what a horse for me to be able to take my career to the next level, really, and to be able to get that first Group 1 winner under my belt was a very special day. And obviously it'll be slightly different this time around. There'll be a far bigger crowd there and less COVID restrictions. So yeah, really looking forward to getting out there.
Now, knowing you must have celebrated long into the night after you rode Scope to victory.
Well, it was a strange one, really. It's not how I envisioned my first Group 1 success. I was all alone. I was on my own in the airport, and I had a drink myself, but there wasn't the initially the celebrations that I had in my mind, but we made sure we made up for it when I got back to England.
So let me get this right. He was on his own on a Saturday night, beer out of a can. Sounds like my regular weekend, that.
That's a good one for me, actually. I'm pretty certain that were Westover to win the Arc, you won't be on your own for too long. Can I just ask, and this might be a silly question because obviously everybody wants to win it, but what would be seen as a successful trip to Paris for Westover? Would it be win? Would it be finish in the first 3? What do you feel is gonna define it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously we're under no illusions that this is the toughest race probably of the year, and one of the best races in Europe, and it's going to be a difficult task. Obviously, going out there to win. I just think if he can run his own race, it'd be nice to have a kind draw and be able to put him in the position that I want to be in, and getting them relaxed, and if he just has a fair crack at it, is the way that I'm looking at it, and if that means he's good enough to win, if he's good enough to be in the first 4, then that will be what it will be. And in these big championship races, you just want a smooth passage and a fair crack at it, and then I think I'll be able to go home happy. And
deep in your heart, you believe he's good enough to win this, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I have so much belief in this horse from day one when I won his maiden at Sandown, and the whole way through his career, he's been quite a special horse to me, to take me to places where he has done, and higher my profile as a jockey, really. So he's a horse that I love riding, and I just love being associated with.
Another Group 1 ride for you on the weekend. I mean, it's a great weekend for you to look forward to. Obviously, the Arc on Sunday, but on Saturday, the Sun Chariot. And a horse who's already provided you with a Group 1 winner this season, Prosperous Voyage. How is she? How is she shaping up ahead of this run, and how much are you looking forward to the experience again?
Yes, she's in great order, and obviously another very special horse that I've been associated with since she was a 2-year-old, and I'm moving into this year. But yeah, wow, that was a hell of a couple of days at the July course, and looking forward to getting back on her again. She had a little bit of a break after she ran in France, but she's done well for it. She looks really good in her skin, and her well-being is good. And I also rode her last week in just a routine piece of work on the grass, and she's good. And I think as well, she has a great record at both straight courses at Newmarket, and it's kind of a race that is a bit more tailored to her needs, I think. So looking forward to it.
What ground would you ideally like for her, Rob?
She's pretty versatile, I think. She acts very well on quick ground, and rode at Newmarket last week, and it rode like quick ground. I'm not too sure what the forecast is, but I think it would take a lot to send it to any real extremes on Saturday. So yeah, she'd be quite versatile with ground wise.
And trainers' fillies are going okay, would you say?
Yeah, no, he doesn't do too badly with them, does he? Yeah, no, the horses are in great form. It's going to be a busy back end of the year, I think, with having such quick ground throughout the summer. Rafe wasn't quite able probably to run as many as he would have liked. So I'm sure it's going to be a busy autumn campaign for lots of them.
I was going to say, I bet the stable buzzing along at the moment with obviously Group 1 success on the weekend, all the good runners, Prosperous Voyage, obviously Westover, Kinross, etc. It must be quite a place to go in, ride out, and the atmosphere there must be something else. Yeah,
real buzz. I love going down to Kimpton. It's a very nice place and a great working environment, and there's a huge team that I always like to reiterate. There's so much that goes into everything, getting these horses at these big championship days, and even all the horses that are running, and particularly a great weekend with Lizou winning, and looks to be a really exciting horse going forwards to next year, and from Mark Chan and Andrew Rosen, and many other owners that support the yard. It's it's fantastic, and like I say, it's when you're having lots of success and riding and going in and seeing nice horses every day, it makes everyone's job a lot easier and a lot nicer, and it's a joy to be associated with it all.
Is he the luckiest owner in the game, Mark Chan?
Ray seems to think so, and he's been pretty lucky. He's been pretty lucky for me. It's been it's a pleasure to ride for Mark, and he's had a good start to the horses that he's had.
Me and Rishi will have 5% with him next year.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, on the wages that we're on, absolutely, we can certainly afford it. Rob, thank you so much for joining us, because we know that you're very busy in the lead up to the Arc, and obviously what is a very exciting weekend for you. We appreciated the time that you offered us earlier in the season before riding Westover in the Derby. We appreciate the time that you're going to spare us, or you have spared us today, and we certainly hope the result is as good, if not better, for you this weekend. Rob Hornby, thank you for joining us on Racing Weekly.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Huge thanks to Rob Hornby for joining us. Westover, just to recap, 16-1 with Bet365 for the Arc. The favourite is Luxembourg at 4-1, Alpinist at 6-1, Adayar 7s, title holder 7s. Last year's winner, Torquato Tasso 8s, along with Verdani. Your likeliest winner of the big race, Sam?
I really like Alpinista. I like her preparation. I like the progress she's made from last year to this. I know she's been well campaigned, and she's found one or two, I wouldn't say they were substandard, but slightly easier tasks. But there's just all been a process of building her confidence, conditioning her well. And I think she's got a lot in her favour. I was very impressed with her at Saint-Cloud, the turn of foot she showed. I thought she went with a bit in hand at York as well. So I think she'd be my number one at the moment. I'm loath to desert Luxembourg. But I wonder whether he's just had a little bit of a cram preparation. If anybody can do it, Aidan can.
It's quite possible that Aidan might be stepping him up with every run, as he has done in the past with horses. So I get what you're saying about a crown preparation. It's quite possible he used the Royal Whip and then the Irish Champion to prep him, to peak him in the Arc.
Absolutely. I think if you fancy him, I think you've got to fancy Ernesto a little bit. I thought he ran brilliant at Leopardstown. He's obviously got Longchamp form as well.
Better at mile and a half.
Better at mile and a half. You know, he's a Frankel out of See the Stars. You know, that writes itself, doesn't it? I think he's got a big chance. What price is he with 365?
Ernesto is 10-1 with Bet 365.
I don't think that's the worst bet in the world either.
No.
So those two at the moment, I think Alpinista and Ernesto would be my... I've just looked through Verdani's pedigree, and I know people have said he's bred for 12 and that, but there's a lot of 10 furlong winners in that pedigree. That would worry me a little bit. Adayar, not sure about stepping from Doncaster straight into a race of that nature. I think he might get a slightly different ride that he got 12 months ago. He tried to blow it apart, turning for home, didn't he? And
there is rain forecast as well.
there is small showers, I think, Saturday and Sunday. Dry the rest of the week. Small showers Saturday, Sunday.
That's a bit of a question mark about his participation as much as anything else.
Yeah.
The Japanese
What about
horse,
you?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I'm kind of waiting, genuinely, I'm waiting for conditions on the day.
Right.
If it is soft, if there is enough soft in the description, I'd like to give another go to Torquato Tasso. I think he's run perfectly well all season long. He ran a great race, I thought. Very quick ground at Ascot in the King George.
Yes.
He was off the bridle all the way through, just they were going too fast for him.
Yes.
And even though he got beat in Germany last time out, I thought it was a really good run.
Yeah.
And he was given a good prep run for the race. So I still wait for him with the ground. And I've been a fan of Ernesto for a while. I mean, at the moment I've got three really. Adayar, Ernesto and Torquato Tasso.
Right.
And it'll depend on the ground, because obviously if the ground stays quick enough for Adayar to take his chance, it's probably not going to be suitable to Torquato Tasso. So it'll be one of those two, according to the ground, and then Ernesto, regardless of the ground, because I like the way he's been campaigned this season. I still think unexposed over a mile and a half. That win in the Grand Prix, it's obviously worked out well. Eldarov was convincingly beaten. So he would be...
way quick and there from the back of the field as well.
Very impressive. The way he ran in the Irish Champion was a performance of, I'm going to need this run, because you know the way the French have traditionally prepared their horses for the Arc is the big day. The Irish Champion is not the
well, for Daly was
it
looked as though he was being campaigned in the same way.
If he stayed a mile and a half, I'd be scared of him. But I like you look through the pedigree, not entirely convinced that he will definitely stay. But Ernesto
won't mind the ground either, will he?
No, Ernesto. That's the other thing. Pretty versatile. Title holder, the Japanese horse. Now, what do you make of him?
How do we evaluate all these Japanese horses?
A couple of his best runs and most impressive wins have been over 2 miles. And the Japanese St. Leger was over 1.7 miles, and he won both those by a long way. And I just wondered whether he might get done for a little bit of toe, unless obviously he's given a very aggressive ride.
What about Dodus?
I quite liked his run.
Did you?
On Art Trials Day, because it looked to me like he was moving into contention to win the race and then just blew up. So he clearly needed it. They said that beforehand, though.
Yeah,
I thought
clever to get a little sighter in as well as
absolutely.
Longchamp, wasn't it?
He's 20-1 with Bet 365. Not the worst each way bet. Very elegant. No chance.
She has been supplemented.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be for me at 7.
25-1. No.
I just think it's quite a strong field, even without Baid. It's a strong field, isn't it?
I'm surprised that John Gosden and Thady Gosden, they're taking a shot with Mostadaf.
Yeah. I mean, that's a bit of a left field one as well, isn't it? That Mishriff's still in there. We've got the 28, I think there's sort of 28 declaration. There's about 3 or 4 declaration stages this week. We'll catch you out if you're not careful. But,
all right.
No, it's a cracking race. I'd love to see. So imagine Sir Mark Prescott winning.
Well, it would be incredible. It would be fantastic. And Kirsten Rousing, who's so desperately breeding good horses year upon year, but wanted to go to the highest level. And
Vive Sir Mark.
So it'd be Alpinista for you, Ernesto for me.
Yeah, Ernesto would be on my shortlist too.
And then my backup would be, depending on the ground, Torquato Tasso and Adayar. Right, we've nailed it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Luxembourg wins by 7 lengths.
Can we talk about a couple of the supporting races? And one in particular that I was quite keen to go over again. We spoke about the Foret a
Yes.
few weeks ago and spoke about Kinross being a good bet. He's 3-1 with Bet365. Homeless Songs now, though, is in the picture, 9-2 for the Dermot Weld team. And that's unsettled my faith in Kinross, almost to the point where I might back Homeless Songs
Really?
instead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You?
I'm quite happy with Kinross. I think he's got the world's luckiest owner cheering him on.
Well,
Mark
that's
Chan.
true. Yeah.
I think he's been in great nick. He's with a great trainer. Frankie will ride, no doubt. The conditions should be fine. He's a perfect 7 furlong horse. I think Frankie, once he got off him at Doncaster, said, "Ignore last year. I know him better now." And I think he felt that the horse was still thriving and improving. So I think he's a perfectly valid market leader for me. Creative Force might be interesting if he runs.
Over 7.
Yeah, he's had quite a quiet summer, hasn't he?
Yeah, saved for a back-end campaign, so he'll be interesting. I like Homeless Songs. I thought her run on Irish Champions Weekend was a sighter for a bigger target. And this is,
it's good that if she does ship up, that she's putting a couple of runs together in close proximity, really, because that's been the problem this year. She's been quite fragile, hasn't she? Okay.
So that will be who I will go with. You're sticking with Kinross.
Yeah.
Couple of other races to mention on the weekend, certainly in Paris. There's the Cadran, the Abbey. The Abbey could potentially see the Platinum Queen.
Yes.
Bidding to become the first two-year-old to win the race since the late 70s, Siggy.
Yeah.
What about the Platinum
She's been to some tough parties, hasn't she?
Yeah.
Danced every dance this year, as they say. The draw, obviously, is crucial in the Abbey, isn't it? I think only one horse in the last 10 years has been higher than 12.
Yeah.
The Brits and the Irish have dominated. I think they've won 8 of the last 10 renewals as well. That said, there was a horse that ran in the race last year, and I thought Benoit, who must have done something coming out the stalls, because he was, after about half a furlong, he was about 7 or 8 lengths behind, with only 2 behind him that were even slower than him at the stalls. And he trailed in last. He didn't run any race, but he won last time out at the track, and has followed a similar preparation to last year. He went off 7-2 favourite last year, or fancied 7-2 chance, but he was poorly drawn in 15. If he gets something a little bit lower towards that rail, something there to run against, I'd be quite interested in him.
Okay, I like the point you make about the draw, because I thought if the Platinum Queen gets to the rail, and I'm thinking,
well, if she's
the
1, 2
rail
or 3,
with her left.
Yeah.
If she's drawn close enough to get to the rail, I think she'll be very hard to beat.
Yeah.
When she won at Goodwood, she hugged that stand-side rail, which was on her left-hand side, and she powered away. We watch her at York, and indeed last time at Doncaster, she hangs left across the track both times.
Yeah.
Both times, I think, it's cost a victory.
Yeah.
And had she had a rail to race against on the left-hand side, I think she almost what
Good point.
she's searching for.
Yeah. If she's drawn 15, she'll wipe the field out.
Well, I mean, that's the other option.
Yeah.
Anything in the Cadran?
No, not really. Not for me. I mean, obviously it'd be great if Kyprios ships up. I don't think Quickthorn should be underestimated.
Well, just about, if Quickthorn runs, wherever he runs next, that
he
was
does
some
like
performance at York.
He does like running them in these stayers races in France, doesn't he, Hughie Morrison? And why not? It'd be interesting to see whether Tashcan goes, or Coltrane, or because Coltrane was going to have the end of his season, wasn't he, before he bolted up at Doncaster. So that has the potential to be a really good race as well.
All right. The Opera, Nashwa, she is 7-4 with Bet365 for that. I think it looks a good opportunity for her.
Does really, draw, and I don't know how many runners they'll get in that race, because it's not one I've had a good look at, to be honest. Hopefully we'll get the declarations moving forward, but it looks a really good opportunity for her on a track she should love.
All right. And the Sun Chariot, the Group 1 race at Newmarket on the weekend. Rob Hornby's obviously riding Prosper Voyage. Saffron Beach set to line up in the race as well. Do you have a strong view at the moment?
I don't. Let's see what the ground's going to be, I think. Obviously, if there's a bit of cut in the ground, Saffron Beach, I think it'll be very difficult to beat. I think she gets consistently underrated, probably because of connections, but I think she's obviously a terrific filly. Didn't think she got the run of the race, particularly behind Pearls Galore, who was given a great ride that day. Speed figure was very good, and she hasn't had too busy a campaign. I mean, I know she started off in Maidan in March, but she only had 3 runs through the course of summer, so she should be fresher than most.
Okay. I do like Saffron Beach. I like the fact that she is back at Newmarket as well. She's got a great record, especially making the running at Newmarket. I can see her what's the word? Spread eagle the field.
Yes.
Spread eagle. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Saffron Beach to spread eagle her field. Anything else the week ahead?
We've got the 2-year-old trophy, haven't we?
Yeah.
Red car.
Is Lamato running in that again?
I haven't seen Lamato in the decks, no.
Still one of the most impressive winners of the race ever. What was the
Phenomenal, wasn't it?
Malcolm Tomlinson said, and Graham Lee hasn't even breathed on him.
No, that's right. He did love that one. No need for a lashing home there, was there?
No lashing.
Just bolted up. Some interesting runners. Cold Case will probably be to the fore of the markets when they open. Although Carl Burke's horse is a little bit quiet the last couple of weeks, 2 from 50 now. Given the dominance all season with the 2-year-olds, Jumbo could be an interesting one. Hasn't been seen since the Windsor Castle.
Yeah.
We all know how well that race worked out. It was only beaten 3 lengths by little Big Bear. Washington Heights is in there, second in the York Sales race. So there's 1 or 2 classy horses, and Barefoot Angel who won the Group 3 at Ayr. She might go again. So that looks quite a warm race, that.
All right, certainly bear those in mind. But we are obviously going to have most of our attention focused on Paris and the Arc de Triomphe. Sam likes Alpinista. I'm sticking with Ernesto. Plus, we've got a few backups just in case. But that's a look at the racing and what fabulous racing it is ahead of us. Coming up next on Racing Weekly, it's Talking Topics. Well, just one topic to talk about in Talking Topics. It involved an incident that happened at Chelmsford at a Thursday evening fixture recently where there was no general admission entry for the public as the sports bar had been booked for a private event. Now, there was a fixture that had been offered to Chelmsford. They accepted the fixture. They held the fixture and they actually offered a hospitality package to members of the public. I think only 60 people took up that offer. 4-course meal, but otherwise it was just owners, trainers, and people with
staff,
involved in that. I personally I understand why Chelmsford did it, and I know that it was a fixture that were offered and they had something else planned for the day, but it was a worrying sign for me that a racecourse could host a fixture without public coming into that venue. It shows that cynical view of, well, racecourses make money even before anyone goes through the gate because of media rights.
Yeah.
And that's a worrying thing for me, because the long-term health of the sport, you want people to come racing as much as possible so that they enjoy the experience, they come back, people that they know it was a short-sighted thing, I understand, for one day, and I understand why they did it, but I really don't want to see it happening again.
On the flip side, the course would say that they had 6 days to pull it together. As you say, they'd already rented out the sports bar or hired out the sports bar, so they hadn't got that facility to offer to their regular race goers. I take on board 1 or 2 of the practitioners that were there were saying that it was a bit like COVID with the restrictions, etc., and there was no atmosphere. It was an awful day, but it was a one-off, and I think we were allowed to give them a little bit of a free pass on a one-off. That track provides really good prize money. Is very well utilised, pretty well run, and I think I'd be more inclined to just be a little gentler in the criticism of them. When I read the headlines, it was like, what do they think they're doing? We can't have this racing behind closed doors. And we all know that there are certain racecourses and certain racecourse groups that it has been rumoured that they would be quite happy to race behind closed doors and obviously keep their X's down to a complete minimum. But Chelmsford have reiterated that is not in their business plan whatsoever.
And it was reassuring, I have to say, it was reassuring to hear Chelmsford say that. It was more the worry that one racecourse does it, and, once a precedent starts, who knows where it stops. And I just was scared to see it happening, and I just don't want to see it happening again for the future of the sport. We don't want the situation where races are taking place and it's just for betting shops, for betting, and
it's a dangerous precedent. Obviously, it is a dangerous precedent. Hopefully, because 18 people got together in a hotel for 2 days, or the great and the good from racing, then the BHA might come out of that with a little bit more power, which seems to be the rumour.
That seems to be what is on the cards, the governance structure of racing about to change by the end of October. It seems that's going to be reality. I mean, if that does happen, and let's hope it does, it is quite a seismic moment for the sport if the BHA can make decisions regardless of what the other two parties, the Racecourse Association and the Thoroughbred Group, whether their proposition might be for or against the BHA. If the BHA can make the final decision, that gives...
Well, that tri-party agreement just didn't work, did it?
Well, I mean, it was 2015 it came into effect, and it's hampered the progress, and it's caused a lot of things to stall, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Stall would be the absolute perfect word. It's just been fudged till this point now, so hopefully moving forward we can have a clean sheet of paper and we can start making some serious decisions for the welfare of the sport going on.
Indeed, I certainly agree with that. But that, I'm afraid, is all the time that we have this week on Racing Weekly. We're going to end with a rather more positive sentiment, and that is we're going to wish Rob Hornby all the best of luck this weekend, both at Newmarket with Prosperous Voyage and the Sun Chariot, and in the Ark aboard Westover. Sam, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoy the racing this week as well. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thanks for everyone who's watched this episode. And as always, if you would like to leave a review, if you liked what you've heard or watched, then you can do that via Apple Podcast review section or in the comments section on YouTube. We're going to take a very short break, but we will be back for the jump season, and we are about to get our heads in the form book for that, but not until after the Ark. Till then, bye-bye.